I need y'all to more so listen than look. If I can get it so you can see a little something. These are the speeches that we need to be listening to.
I need not pause to say how very delighted I am to be here this morning, to have the opportunity of standing in this very great and significant pulpit. And I do want to express my deep personal appreciation to Dean Sayer and all of the cathedral clergy for extending the invitation. It is always a rich and rewarding experience to take a brief break from our day-to-day demands in the struggle for freedom and human dignity and discuss the issues involved in that struggle with concerned friends of goodwill all over our nation. Certainly, it is always a deep and meaningful experience to be in a worship service. And so, for many reasons, I'm happy to be here today. I would like to use as a subject from which to preach this morning, remaining awake through a great revolution. And the text for the morning is found in the book of Revelation. There are two passages there that I would like to quote. It's in the 16th chapter of that book. Behold, I make all things new. Former things are passed away.
Bring it out.
I'm sure that most of you have read that arresting little story from the pen of Washington Irving entitled Rip Van Winkle. The one thing that we usually remember about the story is that Rip Van Winkle slept 20 years. But that is another point of that little story that is almost always completely overlooked. It was a sign in the end from which Rip went up in the mountain for his long sleep. When Rip Van Winkle went up in the mountain, the sign had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down 20 years later, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. And Rip Van Winkle looked up at the picture of George Washington, but in looking at the picture, he was amazed. He was completely lost. He knew not who he was. And this reveals to us that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that Rip slept 20 years, but that he slept through a revolution. While he was peacefully snoring up in the mountain, a revolution was taking place that at points would change the course of history. And Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep. Yes, he slept through a revolution. the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change, and yet they fail to develop the new attitudes, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. And there can be no gainsaying of the fact that the great revolution has taken place in the world today. In the sense it is a triple revolution. That is a technological revolution with the impact of automation and cybernation. Then that is a revolution in weaponry with the emergence of atomic and nuclear weapons of warfare. Then that is a human rights revolution with the freedom explosion that has taken place all over the world. Yes, we do live in a period where changes are taking place. That is still a voice crying through the vista of time, saying, "Behold, I make all things new. Former things are passed away." Now, whenever anything new comes into history, it brings with it new challenges and new opportunities. And I would like to deal with the challenges that we face today as a result of this triple revolution that has taken place in the world today. First, we are challenged to develop a world perspective. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. And anyone who feels that he can live alone is sleeping through a revolution. The world in which we live is geographically one. The challenge that we face today is to make it one in terms of brotherhood. Now, it's true that the geographical oneness of this age has come into being to a large extent through modern man's scientific ingenuity. Modern man, through his scientific genius, has been able to dwarf distance and place time in chains. And our jet planes have compressed into minutes distances that once took weeks and even months. All of this tells us that our world is a neighborhood. Through our scientific and technological genius, we have made of this world a neighborhood, and yet we have not had the ethical commitment to make of it a brotherhood. Somehow and in some way we've got to do this. We must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools. We are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the way God's universe is made. This is the way it's structured. John Donne caught it years ago and placed it in graphic terms. No man is an island in time itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And he goes on toward the end to say, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. Therefore never send to know to whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. must see this, believe this, and live by it. We are to remain awake through a great revolution. Secondly, we are challenged to eradicate the last vestiges of racial injustice from our nation. I must say this morning that racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame. It is an unhappy truth that racism is a way of life for the vast majority of white Americans, spoken and unspoken, acknowledged and denied, subtle, sometimes not so subtle. The disease of racism permeates and poisons a whole body politic. And I can see nothing more urgent than for America to work passionately and unrelentingly to get rid of the disease of racism. Something positive must be done. Everyone must share in the guilt, as individuals and as institutions. The government must certainly share the guilt. Individuals must share the guilt. Even the church must share the guilt. We must face the sad fact, 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, when we stand to sing, "In Christ there is no east nor west." We stand in the most segregated hour of America. The hour has come for everybody, for all institutions, the public sector, the private sector, to work to get rid of racism. Now, if we're to do it, we must honestly admit certain things and get rid of certain myths that have constantly been disseminated all over our nation. One is the myth of time. It is the notion that only time can solve the problem of racial injustice. And there are those who often sincerely say to the Negro and his allies in the white community, "Why don't you slow up? Stop pushing things so fast. Only time can solve the problem. If you will just be nice and patient and continue to pray, in 100 or 200 years, the problem will work itself out." That is an answer to that myth.
100 or 200 years.
It is, time is neutral.
That's a long time.
It can be used either constructively or destructively. I'm sorry to say this morning that I'm absolutely convinced that the forces of ill will in our nation, the extreme rightists of our nation, the people on the wrong side, have used time much more effectively than the forces of goodwill. It may well be that we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and the violent actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence and indifference of the good people who sit around and say, "Wait on time."
He didn't have one. We were in the process of getting him one, and he was then the COVID hit.
Through the tireless efforts
He
and the persistent work
came down last year.
of dedicated individuals who are willing to be co-workers with God. Without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. So we must help time and realize that time is always right to do right. Now that is another myth that still gets gets around, it is a kind of over-reliance on the bootstrap philosophy. And there are those who still feel that if the Negro is to rise out of poverty, if the Negro is to rise out of slum conditions, he is to rise out of discrimination and segregation, he must do it all by himself. And so they say the Negro must lift himself by his own bootstraps. They never stop to realize that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. The people who say this never stop to realize that the nation made black man's color a stigma. But beyond this, they never stop to realize the debt that they owe people who were kept in slavery 244 years. In 1863, the Negro was told that he was free as a result of the Emancipation Proclamation being signed by Abraham Lincoln. He was not given any land to make that freedom meaningful. It was something like keeping a person in prison for a number of years and suddenly the board of jurisprudence would rise up against it. Yes, this is the very thing that our nation did to the black man. Simply said, you're free. And it left him there penniless, illiterate, not knowing what to do. And the irony of it all is that at the same time, the nation failed to do anything for the black man. Through an act of Congress, it was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did it give the land, it built land-grant colleges to teach them how to farm. Not only that, it provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, years unfolded, it provided low interest rates so that they could mechanize our farms. And to this day, thousands of these very persons are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies every year not to farm. And these are so often the very people who tell Negroes that they must lift themselves by their own bootstraps. It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his own bootstraps, but it is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. We must come to see that the roots of racism are very deep in our country. And there must be something positive and massive in order to get rid of all of the effects of racism and the tragedies of racial injustice. And that is another thing closely related to racism that I would like to mention as another challenge. We are challenged to rid our nation and the world of poverty. Military bases on basis of genuine concern and understanding. But not only do we see poverty abroad, I would remind you, in our own nation, there are about 40 million people who are poverty-stricken. I have seen them here and there. I've seen them in the ghettos of the North. I've seen them in the rural areas of the South. I've seen them in Appalachia. I've just been in the process of touring many areas of our country. And I must confess that in some situations, I have literally found myself crying. I was in Marks, Mississippi the other day, which is in Quitman County, the poorest county in the United States. I tell you, I saw hundreds of little black boys and black girls walking the streets with no shoes to wear. I saw their mothers and their fathers trying to carry on a little Head Start program, but they had no money. The federal government hadn't funded them. They were trying to carry on, and they raised a little money here and there, trying to get a little food to feed the children, trying to teach them a little something. And I saw mothers and fathers who said to me, not only were they unemployed, they didn't get any kind of income, no old age pension, no welfare check or anything. I said, how do you live? They say, well, we go around to the neighbors and ask them for a little something. When the berry season comes, we pick berries. When the rabbit season comes, we hunt and catch a few rabbits. And that's about it. I was in Newark and Harlem just this week. And I walked in to the homes of welfare mothers. I saw them in conditions, no, not with wall-to-wall carpet, but wall-to-wall rats and roaches. I stood in an apartment. This welfare mother said to me, the landlord will not repair this place. I've been here 2 years. He hadn't made a single repair. Pointed out her little boy who was a victim of lead poisoning. She pointed out the walls with all of the ceiling falling through. She showed me the holes where the rats came in. She said night after night we have to stay awake. Keep the rats and the roaches from getting to the children. I said, how much do you pay for this apartment? She said, $125. I looked and I thought and said to myself, it isn't worth $60. Poor people are forced to pay more for less.
Yes.
Living in conditions day in and day out, where the whole area is constantly drained without being replenished. It becomes a kind of domestic colony. The tragedy is so often these 40 million people are invisible because America is so affluent, so rich, because our expressways carry us away from the ghetto. We don't see the poor. Jesus told a parable one day. He reminded us that a man went to hell because he didn't see the poor. His name was Diabetes. He was a rich man. And there was a man by the name of Lazarus, who was a poor man, but not only was he poor, he was sick. Sores were all over his body. He was so weak that he could hardly move. He managed to get to the gate of Diabetes every day, wanting just to have the crumbs that would fall from his table. Diabetes did nothing about it. The parable ends saying, that's gulf now between Lazarus and Diabetes. That is nothing in that parable which says that Diabetes went to hell because he was rich. Jesus never made a universal indictment against all wealth. It is true that one day a rich young ruler came to him and he advised him to sell all, but in that instance, Jesus was prescribing individual surgery and not setting forth a universal diagnosis. And if you will look at that parable with all of its symbolism, you will remember that a conversation took place between heaven and hell, and on the other end of that long distance call between heaven and hell was Abraham in heaven, talking to Diabetes in hell. Now Abraham was a very rich man. If you go back to the Old Testament, you see that he was the richest man of his days. So it was not a rich man in hell talking with a poor man in heaven. It was a little millionaire in hell talking with a multimillionaire in heaven. Diabetes didn't go to hell because he was rich. Diabetes didn't realize that his wealth was his opportunity. It was his opportunity to bridge the gulf that separated him from his brother Lazarus. Diabetes went to hell because he passed by Lazarus every day and he never really saw him. He went to hell because he allowed his brother to become invisible. Diabetes went to hell because he maximized the minimum and minimized the maximum. And diabetes went to hell because he sought to be a conscientious objector in the war against poverty. This can happen to America, the richest nation in the world. There's nothing wrong with that. This is America's opportunity to help bridge the gulf between the haves and the have-nots. The question is whether America will do it. There's nothing new about poverty. What is new is that we now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty. But the real question is whether we have the will. In a few weeks, some of us are coming to Washington to see if the will is still alive or if it is alive in this nation. We're coming to Washington in a poor people's campaign. Yes, we're going to bring the tired, the poor, the huddled masses. We're going to bring those who have known long years of hurt and neglect. We're going to bring those who've come to feel that life is a long and desolate corridor with no exit sign. We're going to bring children and adults and old people, people who've never seen a doctor or a dentist in their lives. We're not coming to engage in any histrionic gesture. We're not coming to tear up Washington. We're coming to the government will address itself to the problem of poverty. We read one day, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But if a man doesn't have a job or an income, he has neither life nor liberty, the possibility for the pursuit of happiness. He merely exists. We are coming to ask America to be true to the huge promissory note that is signed years ago. We are coming to engage in dramatic, non-violent action to call attention to the gulf between promise and fulfillment, to make the invisible visible. Why do we do it this way? We do it this way because it is our experience that the nation doesn't move around questions of genuine equality for the poor and for black people until it is confronted massively, dramatically, in terms of direct action. Great documents are here to tell us something should be done. We met here some years ago in the White House Conference on Civil Rights, and we out with the same recommendations that we will be demanding in our campaign here, but nothing has been done. The President's Commission on Technology, Automation, and Economic Progress recommended these things some time ago. Nothing has been done. Even the urban coalition made up of mayors of most of the cities of our country, the leading businessmen have said that these things should be done. Nothing has been done. The Kerner Commission came out with its report just a few days ago, then made specific recommendations. Nothing has been done. And I submit that nothing will be done until people of goodwill put their bodies and their souls in motion. It will be the kind of soul force brought into being as a result of this confrontation that I believe will make the difference. Yes, it will be a poor people's campaign. This is the question facing America. Ultimately, a great nation is a compassionate nation. America has not met its obligations and its responsibilities to the poor. One day, we will have to stand before the God of history. We will talk in terms of things we've done. Yes, we will be able to say, we build gargantuan bridges to span the seas. We built gigantic buildings to kiss the sky. Yes, we made our submarines to penetrate oceanic depths. We brought into being many other things with our scientific and technological power. It seems that I can hear the God of history saying, that was not enough. But I was hungry, and you fed me not. I was naked and ye clothed me not. I was devoid of a decent sanitary house to live in, and ye provided no shelter for me. And consequently, you cannot enter the kingdom of greatness. Do it unto the least of these, my brethren. You do it unto me. That's the question facing America today. I want to say one other challenge we face is simply that we must find an alternative to war and bloodshed.
I really want y'all to hear the
Anyone
message.
who feels, and there's
See,
still a lot of people who feel that way,
speeches that they don't
that war
talk
can
to us
solve
about.
the social problems facing mankind.
They keep us on that I have a dream, so we'll keep dreaming and be
Sleeping through a
lost in the
revolution.
mix.
President Kennedy said on one occasion, mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. The world must hear this. I pray God that America will hear this before it's too late, because today we are fighting a war.
Even today,
I'm convinced that it is
Still.
one of the most unjust wars that has ever been fought
the war
in
is
the
not
history of the
over.
world.
We've been warring since
Our
we've been here.
involvement in the war in Vietnam has torn up the Geneva Accord. It has strengthened the military-industrial complex. It has strengthened the forces of reaction in our nation. It has put us against the self-determination of the vast majority of Vietnamese people and put us in a position of protecting a corrupt regime that is stacked against the poor. It has played havoc with our domestic destinies. This day we are spending $500,000 to kill every Viet Cong soldier. Every time we kill one, we spend about $500,000, while we spend only $53 a year for every person characterized as poverty-stricken in the so-called poverty program, which is not even a good skirmish against poverty. And not only that, it has put us in a position of appearing to the world as an arrogant nation. Here we are 10,000 miles away from home, fighting for the so-called freedom of the Vietnamese people when we've not even put our own house in order. We force young black men and young white men to fight and kill in brutal solidarity. yet when they come back home, they can't hardly live on the same block together. Judgment of God is upon us today. We could go right down the line and see that something must be done. Something must be done quickly. We have alienated ourselves from other nations, so we end up morally and politically isolated in the world. There's not a single major ally of the United States of America that would dare send a troop to Vietnam. So the only friends that we have now are a few quiet nations like Taiwan, Thailand, South Korea, and a few others. This is where we are. Mankind must put an end to war. A war will put an end to mankind. And the best way to start is to put an end to the war in Vietnam, because if it continues, we will inevitably come to the point of confronting China, which could lead the whole world to nuclear annihilation. It's no longer the choice, my friends, between violence and nonviolence. It is either nonviolence or non-existence, and the alternative to disarmament, the alternative to a greater suspension of nuclear tests, the alternative to strengthening the United Nations and thereby disarming the whole world, may well be a civilization plunged into the abyss of annihilation, and our earthly habitat will be transformed into an inferno that even the mind of Dante could not imagine. This is why I felt the need of raising my voice against that war, working wherever I can to rouse the conscience of our nation on it. I remember so well when I first took a stand against the war in Vietnam, the critics took me on and they had their say in the most negative and sometimes most vicious way. One day a newsman came to me and said, "Dr. King, don't you think you're going to have to stop now opposing the war and move more in line with the administration's policy? Because I understand it has hurt the budget of the organization, and people who once respect you have lost respect. People who once respected you have lost respect for you. Don't you feel that you really got to change your position?" I looked at him and I had to say, "Sir, I'm sorry, you don't know me. I'm not a consensus leader. I do not determine what is right and wrong by looking at the budget of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or by taking a sort of Gallup poll of the majority opinion. Ultimately, a genuine leader is not a searcher for consensus, but a mold of consensus. On some positions, expedient, a cowardice asks the question, is expedient? And then expediency comes along and asks the question, is it politic? And vanity asks the question, is it popular? Conscience asks the question, is it right? There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular. But he must do it because conscience tells him it is right. And I believe today that there is a need for all people of goodwill to come with a massive act of conscience and say, in the words of the old Negro spiritual, we ain't gonna study war no more. This is the challenge facing modern man. Let me close by saying that we have difficult days ahead in the struggles of justice and peace. But I will not yield to a politic of despair. I'm going to maintain hope. As we come to Washington in this campaign, the cards are stacked against us. This time we will really confront a Goliath. God grant that we will be that David of truth set out against the Goliath of injustice. the Goliath of neglect, the Goliath of refusing to deal with the problem, and go on with a determination to make America the truly great America that it is called to be. I say to you that our goal is freedom. And I believe we're going to get there. Because however much she strays away from it, the goal of America is freedom. Abused and scorned though we may be as a people, our destiny is tied up in the destiny of America. Before the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth, we were here. For definitely etched across the pages of history, the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here.
Wow.
Before the beautiful words of the Star-Spangled Banner were written, we were here.
Right.
For more than 2 centuries.
Exactly. So how we
Our forebears labored here
I
without
hope y'all
wages.
listening. I really do
They
hope y'all
made
listening
cuts
and
kings.
letting this sink
They
in.
built the homes of their masters in the midst of the most humiliating and oppressive conditions. And yet out of a bottomless vitality, they continue to grow and develop. If the inexpressible cruelties of slavery couldn't stop us, the opposition that we now face will surely fail. We're going to win our freedom because both the sacred heritage of our nation and the eternal will of the Almighty God are embodied in our echoing demand. So however dark it is, however deep the angry feelings are and the violent explosions are, I can still sing, we shall overcome. We shall overcome because the arc of our universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We shall overcome because Carlyle is right. No lie can live forever. We shall overcome because William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed earth will rise again. We shall overcome because James Russell Lowell is right, as we were singing earlier today. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future. Behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair the stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Thank God for John. 2 centuries ago, out on the lonely obscure island called Patmos,
Oh man, I gotta
saw a
go.
vision of the New Jerusalem descending out of heaven from God, who heard a voice saying, Behold, I make all things new. Former things have passed away. God grant that we will be participants in this newness and this magnificent development. If we will but do it, we will bring about a new day of justice and brotherhood and peace. That day the morning stars will sing together, and the sons of God will shout for joy. God bless you.
Okay, guys, that's one excerpt I wanted y'all to hear, and I checked some. I'm reparations down, so I'm finna let y'all see it. Okay, this right here, I want y'all to listen to this one. It's probably more of what he just said, but as a reiteration, I might do this all month long, so y'all might as well get ready. B1. I'm trying to check this little video out right here. Martin Luther King was talking about reparations in this newly discovered speech. Just listen up. Listen to the words. The following excerpts from a previously unreleased speech delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. in Charleston, South Carolina on July 30th, 1967.
Behind the poverty of the spirit,
Thank you for the thumbs up.
which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance. The problem is, my friends, that we have learned to fly the air like birds and We have learned to swim the seas like fish, and yet we haven't learned to walk the earth like brothers and sisters. Racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame. So wherever we live in America, we have to face the fact honestly that racial discrimination is present. So don't get complacent. Certainly we made some strides. We made some progress here and there. But it hasn't been enough. It hasn't been fast enough. And although we've come a long, long way, we still have a long, long way to go. In 1863, the Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation signed by Abraham Lincoln. But the Negro was not given any land to make that freedom meaningful. And you know, it was something like having a man in jail for years and years, and then you suddenly discover that this man is innocent. You go to him and say, now you are free. A man's been unjustly jailed for 35 or 40 years, and you just put him out of jail saying, now you are free.
Exactly.
Don't give him any bus fare to get to town, no money to buy any clothes, no money to get something to eat.
Nothing.
This is what happened to the black man in this country.
Well,
I can't limit my concern
y'all don't hear me though.
to the middle class.
That's Obama folks, the middle class.
I can't limit my concern to this
He ain't
particular
doing nothing for the poor
situation
folks.
where a Negro comes and says, I'm the first this. I'm just tired of the first Negro. I want some seconds and some thirds and some fourths.
And some fifths.
Civil rights movement has to adjust itself to this, and the nation has to do it. You see, we are such a rich nation and affluent nation. We often don't see the poor. There are some, you see, most white people can't see the poor because they live in the suburbs. And then they get in town in these big cities on expressways. They don't know nothing about Watts. They've never been there. They don't know anything about Huff in Cleveland, or the west side, or the south side of Chicago, or Harlem. They've never seen it. And they allow the poor to become...
Or Collegeville,
And a lot
Alabama,
of Negroes,
USA,
you know, who have
Gate City,
somehow failed or floated
Kingston,
out of
High
the
Chaparral, all them.
of the muddy waters, and they've
Cook Green,
been able to ease out into the fresh flowing waters
Southtown.
of the mainstream, have forgotten the stench of the backwater.
I just made progress over this whole city. Half y'all don't even know.
I can hear a voice saying that
Illiton, Lubman,
I was hungry and it fed me not. I was naked and it clothed me not. I needed shelter and you didn't give it to me. I needed a drink of water. And in a while, that 3/4 water you made me pay a water bill.
Okay, guys, that's gonna conclude my mission for the day. Let me get in some light because I gotta go and get a shot. I gotta have some blood work done. This one right here, I want y'all to see. I wanted y'all to at least watch this one too, right there. MLK, new phase of civil rights struggle, 11 months. Y'all feel me? So what I'm about to do right now is go ahead, use these last little 7 minutes to get myself ready. Oh, so y'all can see me. Just so y'all can see me. So y'all ain't 68%, so y'all know I ain't playing. But yeah, y'all heard that, didn't it? Y'all heard Dr. King? If you didn't, make sure you listen to this again and listen to what the brother had to say. And people keep saying Dr. King didn't speak about reparations. He didn't necessarily have to say the word reparations, but damn, when you talking about land and economics, that's automatic. That's an automatic. That's an automatic, especially when you say land. Then the economics. That's why the black man in this country, and not necessarily just the black man, but black people, period, in the United States, is so far behind with the economic curve. Okay. Then when he said, "How you gonna tell a man to get it by picking up his bootstraps if he ain't got no boots? Cause you ain't give him them." That's where the 10-point program came in from the Black Panther Party. Y'all need to read that too. I'm gonna read that to you. Not today, but oh yeah, we got a whole month. I've been doing this, you know what I'm saying? I've been trying to enlighten folks since I've been on here, and really some people might not think that it's worthy of whatever y'all want to call that shit, but hey, it don't matter how I bring it, as long as I bring it to you and you listen and you know what's going on, and you please do research for yourself as well, okay? I just showed you some excerpts from Dr. King's last speech. These are the speeches that they don't teach us about, but they'll tell us every day, every year. We're gonna hear the "I Have a Dream" speech. They embedded that in our mindset, embedded it into our brain, to that we didn't forgot about the rest of the speeches. Like that's the only speech he didn't spoke. You feel me? The man was a minister. He had plenty of speeches, and I'm pretty sure it's other speeches that he didn't spoke on that we hadn't heard. But these are some of the ones that just been leaked now, or whatever they say. You know, I mean, come on, folks. The Poor People's Campaign. I ain't heard nothing else about that. And y'all keep saying why I keep talking about Obama, because when Obama became the president, everybody was happy. Every black person in America was happy. Even me. I was happy as hell. I got memorabilia and everything. But then after 8 years, he just led us along. He just hoodwinked us for a whole 8 years. The LBGT, LMNOP people, they got what they needed. The Jewish people, they got what they needed. And some of the natives, they got what they needed. Then the killing part is about y'all, they using American dollars to help these folks. Now, slavery, the ancestors that were enslaved, they were enslaved for hundreds of years and got nothing. Y'all heard what the good doctor said. It's like getting out of prison. When you get out of prison, they don't give you no money. To catch the bus to go home, they don't give you shit to eat. You feel me? That might be in the state a long time ago, but not if when I got out, they gave me some money to go. Actually, they gave me a bus ticket to get back home because I was all the way in Louisiana. That's way too far out of the jurisdiction of where I should have been. You feel me? But that's just how the government, the BOP, play. It's gonna be a whole month of good stuff coming if I just play the same thing over and over and over again, just so it'll get to sink in our little mindset. We've been taught wrong. We've been taught wrong, y'all. We really have. That's why we got to dig into this information and get around a collective body of people so that you can understand what's really going on. Find your tribe, get on the same wavelength. They done took my brother Yarima Karama. They took his channel. I don't even see his channel no more. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go over there and get some stuff from his website so y'all can still hear what he's talking about. I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear. I know YouTube don't want to hear it because the brother be dropping some good shit. And shout out Information Man podcast. Yeah, go check him out too. These just some few people that I be listening to. Misha X, check out too, and some more people. What?
Did you hear that?
Not yet. He said 10 o'clock. So I'm waiting. The phone ain't ring. But anyway, y'all appreciate that. Black History Month need to be Black History Year. So, yep. Black History Month need to be Black History Year because every day, and then even still, it's just so much stuff. A lot of us don't want to open our eyes to it. A lot of us are complacent. That's another word the good doctor said in there too. Stop being complacent in our captivity. That's the problem. We too happy. They give us a little stimulus. We cool. We go buy some Jordans and some gold teeth. We cool. We go get us some big chains. We cool. You feel me? We still messed up. But anyway, about to get out of here. Get myself ready. Check y'all people out tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Same black time, same black channel.